Could you explain what Dr. Rumana at Tallahassee Memorial did to alleviate the swelling in Jackie's brain?
So Jackie had 3 types of bleed in her brain and actually 4 types of injury. She had a subdural hematoma, which is, we changed. That was the one that I was showing you that was showing the bright red on the illustration. That is an area of bleeding caused by veins, caused by trauma to the outside of the brain, caused by veins. And then she also had an epidural, which is an area of trauma caused by arteries. Now, arteries have pulsating blood supply from the heart, so that area of bleeding bleeds faster, it grows faster than the area that's caused by veins. She also had a subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is from a different structure protecting the brain. And finally, she had diffuse axonal injury, which I can explain a little bit later, but it was actually diagnosed later.
All right.
So I'm going to bring my little friend out.
The model that you brought for us, can you describe for us how what we're seeing here?
Yeah, where did my slide go?
You want it back up?
Yes.
Okay. Explain what happened to her brain in terms of how it affects her ability to walk, talk, eat, all the things that we see that she isn't able to do today.
Okay, so this little guy is kind of just a little simple little guy. So here's the left side of his head, here's the right side of his head. Jackie had trauma to the left side of her head, and the skull is nice and hard, it's bony, it protects, it houses the brain. The brain inside is kind of spongy, and it's full of lots of connections and lots of very sensitive, delicate structures. So when Jackie was struck on the left side of the head, the squishy brain on the inside actually hit the bony part on the right side of her head. So she had injury to both sides. But initially, the most critical was the one on the left side of the head. So what the surgeon did was he removed a part of the skull, took away the blood, the bleeding, the blood clots that were there from the trauma, and stabilized her brain. We have a saying in brain injury and stroke that time is brain. So the sooner that you can get into the brain or you can manage the pressure in the brain, the more brain cells that you can preserve. There's this constant battle between the brain trying to heal itself in sort of a dysfunctional way and we're trying to externally avoid that process. So he made a cut around here, removed this part, and when he sewed everything back up, he put in a pressure monitor to be able to monitor what's going on inside. The brain is kind of like a pressure cooker. So you have a rigid structure and you have one pressure valve. And with the brain, the pressure valve is in the neck. It's the part that goes from the brain to the spinal cord. So the normal pressure in the brain is about 5 to 15. When the surgeon opened Jackie's brain, her pressure was 22. So it was a little elevated. They used the pressure monitor to continue to watch the pressure, to do some medical treatment to bring the pressure down, and they can also drain some of the fluid off that will help bring the pressure down. So it's really important to bring that pressure down initially and to maintain that over a period of time to stabilize the changes that are happening in the brain.
What part of her brain suffered the most damage, and what parts of her body does that part of the brain control?
So her initial injury affected the frontal lobe, which has to do with initiation, has to do with I want to do something, I want to eat something, I want to paint my nails. The parietal area, which has to do with, depending on specifically which part, the left parietal has to do with the right arm and the right leg. And also the temporal area, which is deep in there, and that has to do with seizures and emotions and memory. So that was the initial injury. The secondary injury, like I said, hitting this side and this part of the squishy brain bouncing against the skull on the right side, that also produced some weakness on the left side, but it was not as severe as the weakness on the right side.
Was the approximate 3-week stay she had at Tallahassee Memorial, was that primarily for the purpose of getting her stabilized?
Yes.